Well, I tore it apart because I needed to do some suspension updates, so I'll show you that. So it turns out that bouncing around like crazy on the sand dunes was actually kind of hard on the springs and stuff. Randy told me this was going to happen, but I just want to give you an idea of exactly what happened. So basically, that used to be a nicely curved spring like these, and the setup was sort of, I think it was actually 4 of these. So there were 2 on the bottom, almost full size, basically full size. And then there was this one here on the top. I think there might have been 3 on the bottom, and then this full leaf. But in any case, what ended up happening was there's one of the shocks, this one here actually blew off. The shock cap blew off. And that caused the suspension to drop out too far. And the dropping out caused this leaf spring to bend / twist and everything else you can think of. So really, that's pretty much friggin' shot. Yep. So what I did is I actually put 2 through bolts on it this time instead of just 1. There used to be just 1 through bolt here, so I drilled these out. So now I have 2 through bolts. The nuts are on the top of the springs, and the bolts go all the way through to the bottom. And I changed this around so it's got a full-length leaf on the bottom, then the main, and then another one on top so that it can't rebound out so bad. And I actually took one of the leaf packs out. So there was 4 leaves in this pack. Now there's only 3 on each side. And it'll be lower a little bit as well. So that should keep the shocks from actually overextending out. And what happens is when it's like when it's rolling and it's tumbling and stuff, because it's too bouncy, it gets airborne a lot. And then when you hit the wheel sideways, like downwards or this way, when you're rolling it, it kind of stretches out on the shock. And so I'm adding this spring here to actually help with that stress on the suspension coming down. So, and hopefully it'll also sit a little lower on the springs. That'll keep the shocks kind of in their middle-ish position, if you will. So the back's done. I'm going to take the front axle off, and I'm going to get rid of those red springs entirely. So we'll see how that is. Just a footnote, this is sitting like about a 1/4 inch lower than it was before. So I just got this installed again, and it's still a bunch of work to compress the shocks. But what's interesting is that I actually have lift available. I can actually stretch these out even farther than I could before, so you can see that there's actually up travel now. And the spring is doing its job, because you can see there it opens right up. It actually springs open and then comes in contact with that upper leaf spring. So that's, I'm getting my up stopping now. You know what I mean? So I was about to tear apart the front end, and then I came to realize, oh, wait a minute, I still have no servo horn. So I'm going to fix that problem while I'm in here. But one of the issues that I need to fix basically right away is I'm going to have to decide if I'm keeping the red leaves or not. And they haven't actually been destroyed through this whole process, which I think is amazing. I'm going to do the servo horn now with another plastic one, because that to me is like the sensible thing to do. The plastic servo horn is obviously the breaking point, and I want to have one somewhere, so that seems to be a good one to have. And I might actually just keep the red leaves on it for now. They're kind of straight, so maybe I'll leave those. Anyway, time for a servo horn. Servo horn's on, so I used another plastic one, and I put it on the very inside hole. You can see there. It's as close to the pivot center as it can get. A couple reasons for that. I'll try to demonstrate here. So basically what happens is when you're steering a little bit, you get a ton of steering motion now. What that does is it slows down the steering. Okay, so that's really good. It slows down the steering, and it also gives the servo an insane amount of torque. You can see how much farther the outside hole is swinging. than the inside hole. The outside hole is moving a lot more than the inside hole, and that means the servo ends up with like a huge torque advantage. And on top of that, it gives me, I have less travel, so I'm using about 30 degrees of the servo horn, and on each side maybe 30 degrees, not even, maybe 25 degrees, and I'm getting probably about half of my steering throw that I actually want. So like I only want about that much steering. That's it. It's not much, but you can see this thing has moved 25 or 30 degrees, and on the other side it's about that much, maybe a little farther. It's not that far. So the reason that's good for me is because I don't want it steering very much, especially not when I'm trying to go straight. That's a serious problem. Trying to keep this thing straight anyways is already a serious problem, so now it's going to be hopefully less of a problem because I have a better steering rate. Now, here's how it looks. It sits a little lower in the back than it did before, and I'm okay with that. The reason is obviously the spring amount. You know, we lowered the back end about 1/4 inch, so that's kind of why that is. I still have nice compression on that, and it's not that stiff. I mean, it will definitely compress, and it will move around. So I'm hoping that will actually free it up to have better suspension action. I'm really hoping so. The dropout is a little bit. There's a little bit of flex there on the dropout. And in the front, with the red main leaf and all the helpers on the bottom, basically the reason I like that setup so much is because when you hit something, when you impact a bump or whatever here, it will be able to force that up and absorb the bump in the front. There's a little more travel in the front. It's sitting higher on the shocks than the back, so it should absorb bumps better in the front. You'll also, maybe the guys who have a real keen eye will notice that I actually trimmed up the fenders a tiny bit. There was just the smallest corner here was rubbing on the tire, so I shaved this down. I did a little tiny bit in the back here as well, just a tiny bit, so that there's less of a chance of it rubbing on the tire. And the steering, it basically rubs on the tire a little tiny bit, but I mean, this thing has the front end in the air pretty much all the time, so I don't really worry about that. But now at least it has more clearance than ever, so that's a good thing. Yep. So I think we're basically ready to hit the dunes again. I'm going to be taking this truck over to the Warsaw Conservation Area for the G6 event, which is coming up in a few days. And in that process, there's a beach run and a few other awesome things out on the sand. So hopefully we'll be able to put the truck through some paces over there and beat on it, do some videos. Should be fun. And then if that goes successfully, maybe we'll actually attempt to do some water crossings and stuff with it. So anyway, let's take this thing up to the beach and see if we can fling some sand with it now and make sure everything's good before we go down to the event. Let's take it out. I'm gonna try it on this road here. There's like a sandy, dirty kind of a road here that comes into the beach area, and I'm gonna try it on that and see kind of what kind of top speed we can get out of it. Hopefully it doesn't cut up the tires too much. Kind of lost it there for a second. hood back on here. Thing goes so stinking fast. Holy lifting. Now, why doesn't that go in there anywhere? I think my magnet's stuck here. Hang on a second. So, the suspension works way better than it ever did. Let's see if I can get the camera out of here. And I'm really happy with the suspension now. That's a good thing. I'm gonna see if I can't show that off. Man, this is one tough camera. It's still really bouncy, but it's actually better than it ever has been because it absorbs a few bumps now. Now I'm covered with sand. So, pretty much I think the suspension is way better, which is very good news. I'm pretty happy with the way it's turned out. Lots of rocks and stuff in it now. Yeah. So, overall, it's a pretty good deal. Now we go to Warsaw G6, and we're going to spend some time on the beach over there and beat the crap out of it over there. So, yeah, this is a good time. I highly recommend building a truck like this if you have the opportunity. And I definitely like the suspension improvements now. It actually has some suspension, which is a big deal. So, thanks for watching, and we'll catch you on the next one.